What's going on, everyone? This is your host, Dwight Vick, founder and owner of Vicktory Life LLC. I'm back with another great episode. I've been away for a while doing my show with Mike, talking all things tech, Vic 757 show. But I'm back here with my favorite Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. And today I have, speaking of talking things tech, I got the great Coach Robie in the building for his Legacy Spotlight. This is a great, great guest. To me, I am honored to have you on. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Dwight. I appreciate you having me on, man. Huge fan. I've been following you on social media for a long time. I'm a big football guy myself, so I'm kind of started with that, but love what you're all about, man. And I'm excited to be on with you tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to you on, and shout out to your guy Ethan for reaching out, man. I was actually, when we were doing this and scheduling this, I was excited, just as excited as when I interviewed Frank Beamer. I mean, to get a legacy on, such as yourself and what you're doing with the wrestling program is remarkable. I mean, the wrestling program, let's be clear, men's and women's track are killing it. Basketball, Mike Young, great guy, they're killing it. But if we're being honest, wrestling is carrying that torch right now. Football, shout out to my guy, Coach Pry. He's going to get things right. But you have been, and I know you're going to keep it humble, but let's be real. Your program, we're going to talk a lot about that tonight, as well as your legacy, has really ascended with just great players, great wrestlers. It's just the standard right now, not just in this Commonwealth, but nationally, man. You ever take a moment and just say, wow, like, this is a lot of fun?
Probably not nearly as often as I should. But I'm aware, I'm aware of how lucky I am, and I'm aware of how fortunate I am to be at Virginia Tech. I'm just grateful, man. To me, growing up where I did, and kind of, I would have never thought I'd be in this situation. And so yeah, it's been an awesome ride. I love every part of it. I'll take some time, in 5 or 10 years, or whenever I decide to hang it up, to reflect and enjoy a little more. But right now, we're just trying to get over the hump and get to the next level. It's for us. It's always about getting to the next level, and we've been pretty good for a while. But we want to be really good. We want to be in the upper echelon of teams in NCAA wrestling, and that's what the goal is, and that's what we're working towards, and we're trying to accomplish. And I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yes, no, absolutely. So before we start talking about the great wrestling program and the vision and your method to your coaching and your staff and some of your standout players and upcoming matches, I want to start with you and where it all started. You mentioned where you grew up from. A lot of times we see coaches like yourself, and you see, your vision on the mat and your wrestling and your players, but we don't know the full story. Kind of like, as I got older, I learned more about the guys I played for because I started reading up on them. Talk to our viewers right now about like where you grew up, what sports did you play, where you from, what kind of life did you have growing up?
Yeah, great question. I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania. So Northwest Pennsylvania. If anybody knows anything about Erie, it's kind of like Buffalo, New York. We get about 200 inches of snow a year up there. But probably grew up, lower middle class. Didn't have a lot. Never really left Erie, until I started wrestling in college. I didn't know what I didn't know for a long time. I just grew up in my neighborhood and hung out with my friends, and that's kind of what shaped me. But it was rough. Certainly a lot rougher than my kids have it. And it's funny. We went back to Erie. I don't know. This is several years ago now, and I was cruising, I was kind of wanting to show my kids. We don't go back that often, but I wanted to show them around the old neighborhood and kind of show them where I grew up and where I lived. And it was funny. We turned the corner, and in one intersection, and there was a car completely engulfed in flames. It was like kids were lost their minds. And they're like, what the hell are we at here? So So it was definitely I don't want to paint the picture like it was terrible, but it was definitely rougher than my kids have, and but it was good, man. Like it really, I think, shaped me into being the person I am, and molded me into being having a lot of characteristics that I think it takes to be successful in wrestling, in athletics, and in life in a lot of ways. I mean, as you know, it was a different generation back then, and it was
Sure.
things were just different, and
Yes.
you either you figured it out on your own a lot of times, and I think that's something that kids don't have nowadays, and I think it's unfortunate. I think that there's a lack of leadership and all that stuff because of things are different. But yeah, man. So that's where I lived, and like I said, we never really left Erie. I remember my grandma lived on the far side of town. It was like 5 or 6 miles away, and I felt like I was going to Cleveland, because it was just so off the beaten path, and but yeah. So one thing is, for me, I never really, from a wrestling standpoint, I never really took wrestling real serious, even through high school. Like, I mean, I
Really?
played football. And probably enjoyed football more than I enjoyed wrestling. I was on a Pennsylvania State Championship football team. Had a great high school football coach that really kind of molded me and was a huge influence on my life. But just more or less, I had an older brother. I took a lot of ass whippings from him growing up, and his friends, and in retrospect, it probably was a good thing. So that was kind of my journey, and then I went to I didn't get recruited much, man. I was third in the state in Pennsylvania twice in wrestling. Looked at some, places to play Division II football. Could have maybe played Division II football, but wasn't big enough or fast enough to play at a high level. And kind of got lucky. I ended up going to a small school about 20 minutes down the road, Edinboro University.
Mm.
Edinboro's, if you know wrestling, you're familiar with Edinboro. It's Division II in every other sport except wrestling. It's Division I in wrestling.
Okay.
Pennsylvania's got a bunch of schools like that, but Pennsylvania is like the Texas of football, or the Florida of football. Really, really good high school wrestling. So ended up going to Edinboro and didn't, got like a book scholarship offer. Didn't really have any scholarship offers that amounted to much coming out of high school, but I got kind of lucky. Ended up in a great wrestling environment with some great coaches and mentors and people that really affected my life positively, both on the wrestling mat and off the wrestling mat.
Mm.
So head coach was a guy named Bruce Baumgartner, who was the flag bearer in the 1996 Olympic Games. He was a 4-time Olympic medalist, one of the all-time greats in the sport of wrestling. So he was the head coach there, was a great role model, had some other people that were around at that time, and ended up having a pretty good college wrestling career. Really, once I focused on wrestling, was able to develop pretty quickly and got a lot better pretty fast. I was behind the 8 ball, so my freshman year wasn't great, but I got pretty good pretty quick and kind of ran with it. And for me, just wrestling it was easy for me to see it was an avenue for me to be successful in life.
Yes.
And get out of Erie, Pennsylvania. Nothing against Erie, Pennsylvania, but I didn't want to live there with the rest of my life. I wanted, once I saw that there was more out there, and there was, a lot more in this world, that was something that motivated me, I guess, and kind of inspired me to make the most of my wrestling career. And it's
Mm.
been an awesome journey. But yeah, that's kind of where I started, man. I made a few stops along the way. I was in Michigan for 4 years. I was at West Virginia for a year coaching. I was head coach at Binghamton University for a year before I came to Virginia Tech.
And you got to Tech. You didn't come immediately. I believe you were on the staff. You're the assistant, right? And then
Correct.
you took over the head guy.
Correct.
Um, Coach Robbie, I want to ask you this. Excuse me, Coach Robie, I apologize. When I was growing up, when I played football and basketball in high school, our wrestling program at Hampton High was pretty solid, pretty decent. We had some really good individual wrestlers, but I remember, and I'm just asking, this just popped in my head when you were talking about your career. I always felt wrestlers had this crazy training regimen. Like the practices were brutal. And I remember, I don't know if this is the case now, but in the 90s, I remember guys would like have to drop weight and they would be like, we would be on the football field practicing and the wrestlers would be running around the track or running around the building with
Yeah.
black trash bags on, bro. And it was like hoodies and they were just sweating it out. It just, and I used to look and it was crazy. And we had a guy that played on the football team named Howard Rainey. He was an on-state wrestler. He played, they called it flanker back then, a wide receiver, but he also wrestled. He was a crazy wrestler and he was so strong. And he used to talk to us about leverage, but he would talk about, comparatively speaking, between football and basketball, how brutal the wrestling practices were. And then the whole thing about making weight and cutting weight. I was ignorant to it back then. Have things changed or evolved? Is that what you remember back in PA?
Absolutely. We used to run in the pool because the pool was hot, so we'd run the stairs in the pool and you'd have the black trash bags on. And it's come a long way. I don't think it's as extreme as it once was. And they've changed some things with the weigh-ins where you weigh in an hour before you wrestle. So you can't really cut a ton of weight, but yeah, it's definitely an extreme sport for sure. The training is man, it's incredibly tough. Yeah, it's
Oh,
incredibly
man,
tough.
it's real. It's tough.
It's real. Yeah, it's real. It's a
No,
fight.
speak. No, coach. Speak on that because this is your legacy spotlight. But I want to educate some of my subscribers as well as people that are going to watch this because of your program. Just going. I mean, you got to go deep X's and O's, but just talk about the training, even the off season or even during the season, because we know about how tough boxing could be, but
Yeah.
wrestling, I've learned. I mean, it is no joke. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, it really is. Obviously I played football and 2 days are kind of hard and you get real sore, right? But it's just different. The cardiovascular part of wrestling. Wrestling's unique in the sense where there's strength and there's endurance and there's cardiovascular. It's not like there's other sports that are really hard too. My one son ran cross country and those guys can push themselves, man. I mean that's
Mhm.
tough. But in wrestling, it's kind of a fight, and you got to be ready to scrap, and you got to be ready to fight. And practices aren't real long. Our practices are an hour and a half, but it's not that crazy uncommon for guys to lose 8-10 pounds in a practice. That's how hard they
Crazy.
are. Yeah, so I mean that's the kind of output that's involved in the sport of wrestling, and we go hard multiple days a week. I mean, we taper as it gets closer to competition, but early in the week, our training is tough. We're training twice a day, a lot of days, getting up and lifting in the mornings, coming back and practicing in the afternoons. A typical practice for us is, we'll come in, we'll warm up, we'll drill or spar for 20 or 30 minutes, and then we wrestle hard. And wrestling match is 7 minutes long, but a wrestling practice, you're doing way more wrestling in 7 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's unique in that sense. And I think anybody that has done wrestling and other sports will tell you that the level of training that's involved, the level of commitment that's involved, the level of discipline that's required to be really good, because there's just so many aspects to it. The one thing that we have that the other sports don't is you have to manage your weight. So it's like I got a son right now who's a freshman in high school, and he's he's a type 1 diabetic, so it's really hard for him. So
Oh,
cutting weight is near impossible for him. But he's up in the morning on a spinner bike in the bedroom with some plastics on, and trying to get a little weight off in the morning.
yeah.
So it's tough, man. There's no question. So you got to be ready to scrap. You got to be ready to fight. And I think the thing about our sport, and this like this in every sport, it's like this in life, but toughness matters, and it shows up. It shows up on game day. The guys that are tough and the guys that can stay in the fight for a long time usually have a lot of success over time, and that's one thing that is that doesn't change. I've been around the sport for a long time, and that the skills change. The athleticism is at just like every other sports at an incredibly high level, the highest it's ever been. The skill levels as high as it's ever been. But if you don't have toughness, it's hard to be great.
Absolutely, coach. And I'm glad you said that because when I watch matches or I watch the highlights, when you get your Twitter account shows the clips, and even when I watch nationals, I'm just like, man, one on one, you got to be mentally tough. Like I remember, when I was young, you messing with somebody, they put you in a headlock and all that, and you see your guys flip out. No, it's just you don't have a teammate. It's one on one.
Right.
I do want to ask you this, and this is just my curiosity, but this is part of your legacy spotlight. You have evolved into a great coach. You have a great program. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but I'm always curious to ask great coaches this. Are there some, as you were ascending in your own journey as a wrestler in college and then you became a coach, were there any coaches that influenced you or even any wrestlers ahead of you? A lot of times you talk to somebody, yeah, I watched him, I played baseball. These are the guys I watch. Were there coaches or wrestlers that you kind of watched or even another athlete that just had an impact on you in your playing career and as a coach?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mentioned one earlier. My high school football coach was huge, I guess influence on my life. In kind of a strange way. Like for me, he was, I was at that when I was in high school. I probably didn't, have the greatest attitude all the time, and maybe,
Really?
I don't know, could have been a little punk sometimes. And this dude held me accountable all the time,
There
and
it is.
I didn't always like it at the time, but I certainly appreciate it now. And we still have a good relationship. We still write letters and talk. And yeah, man, he was a huge influence on me. His name's Joe Buffalino. Uh, the assistant coach at Edinburgh, he's now the head wrestling coach at West Virginia, a guy named Tim Flynn, another guy that was huge. Just he's about 10 years older than I was. So we trained together a lot. We wrestled together a lot when I was in college. And that's the thing about coaching wrestling. It's like you're scrapping with those guys, especially when you're young. I mean, you're in the fight with them every day too, wrestling with them. And I'm not doing that anymore. I'm way too old for that, but I get my ass. But so anyways, Tim Flynn, man, that guy was a huge influence. Still one of my best friends. We vacation together.
That's what's up.
Somebody that I can call and count on, as a friend, as a mentor, was huge for me. And he was somebody that just helped me start believing in myself. When I got to college, I wasn't a blue chip recruit coming out of high school. And he was the guy that kind of convinced me, he kind of sold me on myself. And that sometimes that's what coaching is about, is selling guys on themselves and convincing them how good they are and how good they can be. And he really did that for me. So he was a huge influence. And just friends too, man. Like I had a great group of friends growing up. All guys that went on to be really successful. My best friend's a cardiologist. We're best friends since we were, probably 5 years old. And
Wow.
I think we held each other accountable through life too. So he was huge. His name's Quentin Orlando. Comes to the NCAA tournament every year. So those are a couple to name a few. And obviously there's competitors. There's guys that wrestled in college that I looked at and I was like, I want to be like this guy. Like I love the way this guy competes, and
Yes.
that's how I wanted to compete, and just kind of have that mindset where I'm gonna do whatever it takes to win, and losing is not an option. I mean that's something I used to tell myself all the time. Is losing is not an option for me.
No doubt.
It didn't always work out that way. But yeah, so definitely, I won't name names of athletes, wrestlers, because they're coaching in other places. But
I got you. I got you.
definitely some guys that you looked up to. And to me, it was more about the way they competed, and that's what I look for in my team. It's not always about winning and losing. It's about how you win and how you lose. To me, and I think when you have that mindset, you do a lot more winning than you do losing.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I asked that question because I think sometimes I'm very you already know this, I'm very active on Twitter. I do all these legacy spotlights and I deal with the media, I do radio shows. And it's amazing how sometimes fans, and I was guilty of that when I was a fan, we don't understand the legacy to becoming really good or really great. And we think it's just you wake up and like, that's why I like talking to you national guys like yourself and women, how they got to this point, because it's a journey. And, obviously you're full swing as coaching now, but, at the same time, you took your lumps, you had your life lessons. Um, and it's great because now you're passing on to the kids you coach. Speaking of that, man, let's talk about this great VT wrestling program. I mean, first of all, just read some of this. I'm not going to read you all this stuff, but this is crazy. Like I know you're not in the moment and you're focusing on this season, but I mean, listen, I'm just looking at this, and Coach Robie's first full campaign, Virginia Tech placed at least 3 wrestlers on the podium at nationals. I'm just skimming through this, man. I can't name all these guys. You have ACC championships. You winning percentage ranks first among rookie head coaches when you took over 14 ranks second behind Tom Brands. I mean, ACC championships, dual meet, 3 ACC tournament championships, and finished in the top 10 at the NCAA championships 5 times. One of these top 10 finishes included a then ACC record and program best 4th place finish in 2016. You have coached 17 ACC champions and 14 All-Americans. And ladies and gentlemen watching or listening, understand, I'm not even going through this. We don't have enough time. And I know Coach is sitting across from me. I just want to say, man, like, again, I'm not going to ask you to look back and reflect. Even as I skim through that like, really quickly and the champions, and I know you can't name all the players you coached then and now, but this is going to be a tough question in some sorts because I don't know how you're going to answer it. But when you take us, we're just going to take a few minutes, coaches. I know you focus on this season, but when you think about your journey, even as an assistant, but now the head man, and all the wins and the matches and comebacks, beating some of the other top programs, and as you build towards your eventual goal of, that championship and that eliteness, I think you guys are there, but you won't even go higher. What do you credit that? What do you know? Is it obviously you got to have talented players, but it's not all about you. So what do you credit? Is it your work ethic? Is your staff? Is it, I always thought one thing looking back when I played for Beamer, I tell people all the time his staff was impeccable.
Yeah.
For you, what is that? What do you attribute to all the success you guys have experienced?
I think it's always about people. It's about a lot of people, way more, certainly not just me. A lot of people that have committed to Virginia Tech wrestling, and it's a process, man. Like we weren't good when I first got here. We were in 07 and 08, my first 2 years. We had 0 points at the NCAA tournament. And, people that have been in the NCAA, I've told this story a bunch of times. People have been in the NCAA wrestling tournament. So they list all the teams on the front cover. They used to have these bracket sheets, before everything was digital. And it would have all the team scores, right? And whoever was in first, Penn State or whoever. And then the teams with 0 points would all be listed last alphabetically. So Virginia Tech was the last team on the page for the first 2 years. We scored 0 points at the NCAAs. So it was perseverance. It was philosophy, sticking with what you believe in, right, and demanding a certain kind of commitment from everyone involved in the organization, right? Everybody involved in the organization has got to be highly committed to what we're doing, and that's we have 30 guys on our roster. That's goes from Makai Lewis, who's probably number one, to the last guy on our roster, to our our ops person, to Ethan, our marketing guy, and just having a standard of excellence. And I think that's contagious. And I think probably the best word is culture. It builds a great culture. And when you have that culture, you're either in or you're out. And not everybody's in. That's the way it goes, right? I heard Nick Saban say once, his job is to get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus and get them in the right seats. So to a certain degree, that's what it's about, is making sure that you have good culture. And I've been fortunate since I took over, have had a lot of continuity within our staff. I know that was a huge part of the success under Coach Beamer. They had
Yes.
a continuity for a long time. And
Mhm.
when you have good people and you have good character people, they're committed and there's continuity and everybody knows what to expect and everybody's on the same page. Um, I think it breeds success. And I think once that culture is built, you kind of attract kids and people that fit it. And if they don't fit it, they're probably not going to be here or they're probably not going to come. So, um, I would say that's a big part of it. But uh, you got to grind too, and you got to be able to work, and it's not glamorous all the time. You got to put in a lot of hours, and I think in any successful endeavor, um, the work part of it doesn't probably get talked about enough.
Bingo. And Coach Robie, that leads me to my other question. You've been coaching a long time, and you talked about Makai and the culture you have, which I think is understated sometimes when it comes to winning teams and great wrestlers or great players. Um, when you talk about your culture, the players you have, how would they describe you as a coach? I know because like again, we're doing this interview, man. I'm like, man, I would love to. I can't wrestle. I've never, but I would love to. If I come to Blacksburg, look you up and just sit down in your office and chop it up. But I know I am alumni. I'm not playing for you. And you have a look. I don't know what it is about you PA guys, but all the PA guys know have that same toughness, that Bill Cowher look. Y'all all have it. How would they, you do? I mean, you guys, a lot of y'all are badasses. I mean, real talk. But how would they describe you? Because we don't get that inside, like that all access. So, how is Coach how are you during the week? When you guys are getting ready for a big match, or
You know,
even throughout the year.
I think so. I think as I've gotten older, I'm a lot calmer than I used to be. I really am.
Okay.
I think I've gotten better managing that part of it, and uh, every once in a while, the emotion comes out more. But when it comes to my guys and our team, and hopefully, I think they would describe me as a person with high character. I pride myself in
Mhm.
that person that cares about the guys. It's not, it ain't about wrestling, man. Wrestling's part of it for sure, and what we do. But to me, I'm trying to help these guys in life and help them manage their lives and making sure they get what they need while they're here, right? And we help them any way we can. And this is, getting back to what you were talking about earlier. I don't want to, veer off here too far, but I know you do a good job on social media, kind of reining people in when they start losing their minds a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
I think I've said this before. I think people don't realize, they look at these guys and then they're great athletes, but real life happens to them too, right? I mean, like
Yes.
real life happens to them just like it does everybody else. So, I know you said you're in mental health counseling and like
Yeah.
that. I love helping.
Hmm.
I love helping people. I think that's what I'm passionate about. So, like, whether it's wrestling, whether it's life, whether it's academics, whether it's with their family, whatever they need to do, hopefully that they know that I'm there for them. And I think that's how they would describe me. I don't know. It's probably a better question for
Well,
them.
I talked to some people, and they it matched what you said, and that's good. And I think that's bigger than sports because the young men you're coaching, obviously, they're going to go off into the corporate America, in the real world, have their own families. And I think that's the thing. I take pride in the fact that during my era, a lot of the guys is doing really good. And I'm happy that I'm representing my university and my family well. I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress every day, but I still carry so many values what I learned at Tech. And Blacksburg, never thought when I was being recruited I would have a home there, but it's still my second home. Speaking of that, and you talk about your impact and how your players, I'm sure they would agree, love and respect you. Um, Players, we got Twitter, we got Snapchat, we got Instagram for the OGs, the old school, we got Facebook still. But my point being is, you know, I don't really knock young men because I work with juveniles and youth all week throughout the year. And I think sometimes we like to label them, but things are different. You got NIL, you know, Twitter is a crazy place. I love it, but there's a lot of other stuff in there. Sometimes it can get nasty, become a cesspool. You have now the transfer portal. the game is different. I mean, you have all these podcasts and bloggers, and everybody has an opinion. When you are recruiting kids, your program is like I said, very well respected. I text my guy, Dr. Newman. He's a superintendent here in Manassas City Schools up in Nova, and we were just talking about a basketball game. I said, I got to jump off. I'm getting ready to interview Coach Robie, and he was like, "Oh my God, they have a powerhouse." Like, it's the first thing he texts me back. So obviously that brand is doing very well, but recruiting is a tricky situation. It's not an exact science. So not to give away all your secrets, but when you're out here hitting the roads and you and your staff are evaluating kids, obviously talent aside, what are you looking for? And what kind of kid or young man, I hate saying kid, I'm sorry guys, young man fits your program?
It's a great question. In recruiting is hard. It's if anybody's batting 1,000 in recruiting, they're doing great, man. I mean, it's a tough thing because obviously you can't see inside of them, right? I mean, I don't know. I can't see inside of you. I can know how much talent you got. I can look at results and know what you want and how good you are as a wrestler. But that doesn't always translate to the next level, right? So I think character obviously is a big part of it, right? I mean, you want to get kids that fit your culture, kids that are going to be around for 4 or 5 years too, right? They can make it academically, and kids that if you're going to commit to them, they're going to be here for a while. So that matters. I think having a strong family is helpful. It's not always necessary, but it's helpful. And guys that love wrestling, that's probably the biggest thing, is you got to love the sport of wrestling because it's hard. Wrestling is hard, and it's going to get hard at some point. There's going to be adversity. How are you going to respond to that? And some of those things are easy to tell. Some of those things are hard to tell in the recruiting process. And like I said, it's tough, man. Like, we've done really well recruiting, and we've had a lot of kids that pan out, but sometimes you get a kid that, I don't want to say he's an afterthought, but you're not expecting a ton out of him. And 3 years later, you're like, damn, this guy's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
There's guys that come in and that are highly touted, and sometimes they're not around that long. So it's a crapshoot a little bit, but we do try to bring in good people. We try to figure out how much they love wrestling, and we try to make sure they fit our culture. I think that's the best we can do.
Do y'all have to deal with this stuff I mean, football is always the most popular sport, but I mean, obviously you have, a great program, and in the day and age, you have to deal with, the transfer portal, or, kids saying, "Hey coach, I don't know if they come to you with NIL, but like, are y'all trying to navigate through the new era of collegiate sports as well, like these other programs?"
You have to, right? I mean, it's
Gotcha.
like
Yeah.
you either do or you die. So you have to, whether you want to or not. And transfer portal hasn't been bad for us. I mean, wrestling's not like football. What's going on in football right now is absolutely insane. I mean, it's just
Crazy.
like bonkers, right? I mean, I can't imagine being a football coach right now. It's got to be brutal, right?
It's crazy.
But it's something that we are navigating. I mean, like, transfer portal, I think if you treat your guys good and you take care of them and you try to help them with NLI as much as you can within the NCAA rules, right? Try to take care of them. I think they're going to stay. And I think all our guys want to be at Virginia Tech, right? I think they love it, and Virginia Tech's an easy place to love for sure.
Yes.
Right. I mean, we all know that. Everybody that's probably going to listen to this is affiliated with Virginia Tech, knows how great it is. But it's a different era of coaching, and there's a lot less of the wrestling part involved, or I'm sure for Coach Pride, there's a lot less of the football stuff involved now. And you're running an organization, and you're managing people, and there's a lot to it. And the NLI stuff definitely adds another element to it. So, but we're in it to win it, and we're working on all fronts to make sure that Virginia Tech is attractive to the best kids in the country, in all those areas.
You actually, coach, brought me to my next. That's a great segue because you brought me to my next question. Just educating myself and even the viewers and listeners checking out your legacy spotlight. When it comes to recruiting, you know, actually, I was up in Unity Reed. I'm in Northern Virginia, and today I actually got a chance to talk with Mac Brown. He was there meeting with a kid he has committed that I've known since he was young, and we chopped it up for a few minutes, and it was great talking with him. And it was just interesting seeing him in Northern Virginia for your recruiting base because you have a national brand. Your program is, well known, respected. Do y'all recruit like where are the hot spots, for wrestling? Because I know with track or baseball, there's certain regions or certain locations. Are you state Virginia, or do you guys hit up north? Where what is that? How's that work for your program?
Yeah, so traditionally, and this is changing a little bit, but traditionally, um, the further north you go, the better the wrestling is, right?
Gotcha. That's what I thought.
There just ain't that much to do in Erie, Pennsylvania in the winter. So, and if you can't play hoops, you're probably gonna wrestle. Like every one of my friends at least tried wrestling. They didn't all stick with it. They all tried it though. So you start with a wide base, and then so the numbers are better. So typically, traditionally, Ohio, New Jersey, Pennsylvania are the three top high school wrestling states, and we've done pretty well in those states. Makai's from New Jersey. We've had a kid named David McFadden, who's four-time All-American from New Jersey. We got a kid coming in next year named Jimmy Mullen, who's going to play football and wrestle at Virginia Tech. Who's from
Yes, I was. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. That guy is an animal. He's a
yeah.
wrecking Ralph. I'm just excited because I'm both sports. Sorry, I
Yeah,
like him.
no,
I
I'm
like his
excited
film.
too, man. And Coach Robie was great. I mean, like, so we're excited about Jimmy. He just got named All State in the state of New Jersey. He plays
Mm-hmm.
up at St. Joe Regionals. They compete against Bergen Catholic and all these like elite level teams. And Jimmy's a good player, man. He's gonna be good. He doesn't, he might not fit the measurables that some of these other guys do. But he's a tough dude. And he plays hard. That goes a long way. So, anyways, yeah. So that we've done well. We've done well in those states. We've done well in Ohio. We got a kid from PA coming in next year that we're really excited about. Two kids from PA that we're really excited about. I think two of the best kids in the state of Pennsylvania. And one of them was a high school quarterback, really good high school quarterback too. So that's typically what we do, but we've done well in the South here recently too. We got a kid that's true. We have two true freshmen, one out of Atlanta, Georgia, a kid named Caleb Henson, who's going to be really, really good. Is already really good. He's ranked 10th in the country as a true freshman already. Kid named Tom Crook from Tampa, Florida, same boat. He's a 141 pounder. He's ranked 10th or 12th in the country as a true freshman. So typically, I would say most of our recruiting is up and down the East Coast. And we try to get the best Virginia kids. We got a kid coming from Northern Virginia who's a world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's been wrestling 3 years, and he's one of the top wrestlers in his weight class in the country. But he's been like a 5-time age group level Brazilian jiu-jitsu world champion. So, he's really good. He's going to be fun to see how he develops.
Y'all are killing it.
Yeah, we had a good year recruiting. We had a really good year recruiting this year. So we got some good kids coming in that are athletes too. I mean, these kids, 3 of them are 2-sport athletes, and I think those guys can develop when they get to college. So, I mean, those guys have they're well rounded. They learn to be better athletes. It's funny, we'll play football and basketball. And you can tell the guys that have never done anything but wrestle their whole lives once you roll out a basketball out on the floor. It's it's ugly for everybody, but it's really ugly for them. So yeah, man. So that's kind of where we go recruiting. We try to get the best Virginia kids. Virginia is a solid wrestling state, but it's not. We can't make our living just in the state of Virginia.
Yeah, no, I figured that, and some of that I knew, but I still don't. I'm not as familiar with how it works, but I know you got talent. And just hearing those names, that's just crazy. I mean, you guys are doing a great job, and that's as you already know, coach, you've been doing this. Recruiting is the foundation. You have your culture, but you got to get the right players. You got to get talent. Speaking of talent, you mentioned Makai. Let's talk about him and some of your other guys that, some of your featured players or some guys this year are helping you win matches, and some people, fans like myself and observers should be on notice about, and just some things that you've seen. So highlight some of your players.
Yeah, so right now we've got we have 10 wrestlers. There's 10 weight classes. I think every one of our guys is ranked in the top 20 in the country. So in at least one of the rankings. So we're really have a solid team this year. Really, really solid. No holes in our lineup. So if you look like just right off the top, obviously Makai's been, national champ as a freshman, won the
Yeah.
Junior World Championships, was an NCAA runner-up last year, lost a heartbreaker in overtime. He's incredibly consistent. He's a gamer. He does his best wrestling when the moment's the biggest. Like pressure doesn't get to him. He thrives. And you go to the NCAA tournament, NCAA wrestling tournament it's a hell of an event, man. It's
Yes,
20
it is.
people. It's people that don't know need to at least tune in and watch it. It's awesome, man. It's an awesome event. So he's great in those environments, and he's somebody that we can count on. We got another guy named Bryce Andonian from Cleveland, Ohio. Was third at the NCAA's last year, man. He lets it fly. He's a guy that is, our fans love him. One of the most exciting wrestlers in all of college wrestling. He's dinged up a little bit right now. He's been banged up this year, so we haven't really seen much of him. But we got to get him healthy. When he's healthy, he's as good as anybody. And if he has a good weekend, he's good enough to win the nationals. Another guy named Sam Latona, who was an All-American a couple of years ago for us. He's out of Alabaster, Alabama, of all places. That's, there's not a lot of good wrestling out of Alabama, so that's a testament to him. Like I said, we've been diversifying a little bit and going south. We got some guys from Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, Georgia now, but he's good, really dependable, great culture guy, great leader. Kid named Hunter Bolin, who's a local product. He's from Floyd, Virginia.
Lloyd, wow.
Yeah, man. I don't think anybody before him even wrestled from Floyd. So to me, I'm All-American. Wrestled at Christiansburg High School, though. He's got a good program. But grew up in Floyd. He's back for his 6th year, and he's looked good so far this year. I'm real pleased with where he's at. He didn't have a great campaign last year in his I guess senior year, but he had his COVID year, and made a decision to come back and wrestle. And he's doing a good job, man. I'm real excited about where he's at mentally and how he's competing. And he went out to Las Vegas, big tournament out there, and he got third and looked really good. So those are a few guys. I mentioned a couple freshmen earlier. This Tom Crook kid out of Florida, true freshman, 4-time Florida State champ. Kid named Caleb Henson out of Georgia. Wrestling fans know who they are, but if you're not a wrestling fan, remember those names. You'll be hearing about those guys, and if not this year, certainly in the near future.
That's what's up, Coach. And when this airs, we're gonna remember him, and I'm gonna keep promoting and supporting the wrestling program, especially the platform I have, man. You know, you mentioned your players that you just named, and you talked about your program. I didn't even, like I said, I wanted to go in, but I don't want to bore people with the whole, like, all your accolades, the programs. But I'll say this. You mentioned earlier about, like, we're really good, but my vision is to take us to that elite level, which for me, someone not as knowledgeable about the sport as you, I pay attention, but this is your sport. I thought you guys were knocking on the door or even were elite at times. But let's talk about your vision for the program. You talk about that next step. What does that mean to you for your players and your program?
Next step for us is to, so they give trophies at the NCAA for the top 4 teams. So for us to be in that group of 4 every year, we're consistently in that group, is kind of where I'd like to be, right? I think if you're in that group every year and things go right for you, you got a chance to win. And I'm realistic. Winning the nationals will be really hard, right? It's wrestling there's been like 6 teams ever that have won. Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, Iowa State back in the day, and I think Arizona State snuck in there once, and maybe Oklahoma. But it's hard to do in our sport. But I do think we're getting closer. I do think that if we put ourselves in, we've kind of been in that. We placed as high as 4th. Typically, we're like 6th to 10th place. Is about 6th to 11th. We've been 11th a couple times too, but right in that range. And I want to make that next step and be in that next category of teams. And we're close. We're really close. And but I don't want to be right now. It's like, hey, if you have a great NCAA tournament, you can be in that group, right? Like, the year we got fourth, we had a great NCAA tournament, and like a lot of things went right for us.
Yep.
I don't want that to have to be the case. Like, I want to, like, hey, if you have a great NCAA tournament, you're first or second, right? As opposed to getting fourth. So that's the next step for us, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think you naming guys that are on the way or in the program already that are going to help you guys do it. I firmly believe that. I actually enjoy seeing coaches like yourself build a program and then establish a culture that is just not just about winning, but just the expectations are high. I think if you're a competitor, and I'm a competitor, I love when the expectations are high. When I played, I never enjoyed blowing. You want to blow a team out, but it feels better when you blow a really good team out.
Yeah.
Speaking of other universities and teams, um, what are some matches upcoming the rest of the regular season? Whether it's the in conference or out of conference. I mean, again, this is great for our viewers, even Virginia Tech fans that want to support wrestling or casual fans. What are some matches that we need to mark our calendar or some teams that we gotta this is going to be a good one. We're going to have to really come with it.
Yeah, well, it starts on Sunday. We wrestle Missouri at home, Castle Coliseum, 4:30 Sunday. They're ranked 6th in the country. They got 2 guys in their lineup that are ranked number 1 in the country. It's going to be a heck of a dual meet. It's going to be a heck of a dual meet. We went out there last year and we beat them in the heavyweight match. It was a great match. We've kind of went back and forth with them over the years. They have a great program. They got a great program. They got that SEC money and they're in wrestling, so it's a good thing for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, yeah, it starts then, and then we wrestle Cornell, and people that aren't wrestling fans don't know how good Cornell is.
I was getting ready to. I was going to say Cornell. What? Yeah. Cornell?
Cornell is
really?
legit, man. Cornell is like they're really good. Really, they're top 10 every year. Put it this way, there's been we're one of, I think, 4 programs that has had 3 All-Americans or more the last 9 years. Penn State, Iowa, Cornell, and Virginia Tech are those schools. And Cornell they've finished as high as 2nd at the NCAAs over the course of the last decade. They've gotten team trophies. The Ivy Leagues in wrestling are pretty good, and Cornell is exceptionally good at wrestling. So we got them, and we wrestle them at the Moss Arts Center on January 6th. It's an awesome venue. It's just a really cool thing if you like wrestling. It's a unique experience, to say the least. It's on the stage. It's neat, and when it's quiet, it's really quiet. When it's loud, it's really loud. So guys love it. They get to perform. But they got a kid on their team named Yanni Diakomahalis, who's going for his 4th NCAA title this year. Was actually just placed 2nd at the World Championships this past summer. So he'll wrestle our freshman Caleb Henson. So there's a lot of great matches in that dual meet, so that'll be another great one. And then NC State's always a great dual meet. Virginia Tech and NC State, we got a great rivalry with them. They've got a great program. We wrestle them at home on January 20th. And Pitt's got a good team this year and UNC's got a good team, but the last several years, for as long as I can remember, the ACC championship has been decided in that dual meet.
Good. That's a little slight flex you did. I caught that flex. Basically saying it's got to come through y'all. I love that. You can speak that. This is your legacy spotlight. It comes through Blacksburg. And I'm not even really, like hyping it up. It's true. And I think that's why I was really excited to have you on and still excited because I'm learning more about the program. I'm learning more about, the legacies and the runs you guys are having. And it's pretty remarkable. And I think it's good to give it light. Like I said, man, winning is not easy, and wrestling is a very challenging sport. And there's when I was at Tech in the late 90s, the wrestlers, there were certain groups that walked around Castle or campus, and it was football players and wrestlers. And it was a different level of respect, but it was all love. Let me ask you this, Coach. You talked about, the upcoming matches I asked you about and the rivalries and everything like that. Switching subject a little bit, but relative to coaching. You mentioned your sons and your father. I've learned in the last 20 years, as I've gotten older, how tough and demanding coaching is. It is, you're seeing a lot of some of the greats get out in all sports because it is demanding and it's always evolving. We mentioned NIL and social media, and you and your staff and your wrestlers have done such a great job since you become the head man that the expectations get bigger and bigger. And you have a vision for your program, but it's demanding. There's sacrifices. It's long nights and early mornings. Even scheduling this, I mean, I appreciate you jumping on because you got, a big match this week. How do you balance that? Because we have to have that work-life balance. I mean, what do you do? Not to make this a session, a therapy session, but I asked that question because I know and I'm respectful of the energy and time you put into this. The fans don't always know that. So how do you manage that? With family time, you're pointing to all these young men and the managers and trainers, and then how do you point to yourself and make sure your family's taken care of?
Well, I guess number one is I don't have any hobbies. Like it's not if I'm not wrestling, I'm at home with my wife and with my kids. I don't golf. I don't I work out. That's about it. So, but I can do that at work. So I'm lucky. But yeah, so that makes I'll say this much. It's gotten easier as my kids have gotten older. Um and my kids, my two youngest kids, my middle son and my youngest son both wrestle. So I've been able to spend some time with them. Um, there's some overlap there. So that makes it better. But when they were young, I missed a lot for
I
sure.
know. That's what I want you to touch on because I know you did. And that's where I didn't mean to interrupt, but I know you did. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when they were young, and that's when we were still building, so we were gone a lot. I traveled a lot, recruiting, wrestling, working wrestling camps in the summertime. So that's probably the one thing. If you have a regret, a little bit, I think a lot of coaches would say that is you miss a lot of stuff when your kids are young, and that's stuff you don't ever get back, right? But I think if you ask them, I mean, to be able to grow up on campus at Virginia Tech and be a part of, the university and the athletic department, it's a pretty cool way to grow up too. So, there's some trade-off there for sure, but I've got a great wife. Me and my wife have been together since we were 17 years old.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, so she knows the deal. She's been around wrestling for a long time. She knows what's up. I mean, when you gotta run and you gotta go and you can't be there on your anniversary, it's just the way it is.
Let me ask you this, Coach. Let me ask you this. I've been married 21. Does your wife, because that's your partner, that's your best friend, does she sometimes, give you feedback on coaching or like schemes, or does she talk? Do you guys process together? Like, I'm always curious about that. I remember when I was, obviously AAU level, my wife would always give me little tidbits because they see things, they know you. Does she ever chime in on that?
I think more about just I think kids and uh she just wants to make sure people are getting treated right. So she helps
Okay.
with that. She'll chime in on the wrestling part occasionally, more with my own kids. So they don't necessarily love that when she starts talking to them about wrestling. But she definitely is very supportive and very, I guess, in tune with that part of it, and just even with staffing and she's much more sensitive person than I am, so that helps me in that sense. So yeah, that's probably her biggest contribution to me in my career, and just her support obviously, and being there, and being along for this journey for forever really. So yeah, I'm grateful, man. I'm lucky.
No, man, you're blessed, and I know she's tough because I know you're tough, but I think together you guys probably make a great situation, great family, great legacy. Speaking of that, you talked about your two youngest ones. Are you that dad? Do you do the daddy board like you always, or there's there a break, or you always on them about you guys should have done this and done that, or you just like what, I'm proud of you.
I try to be, and I mostly am. I don't, I always tell them, listen, it's your wrestling career, not mine. And you have way more resources than I had. Way
Yes.
more, right? I mean, you can, my son's a freshman in high school. He's already been over training at Virginia Tech. I mean, working out,
Wow.
and so you're around coaches on our team, take them under their wing and work with them. So it's up to them. Would they? I'll support them any way I can. I'll help them when they have questions. If they want me to work out with them, I'll do my best to make that happen. But I try not, and I can't say I always do. I try to just be supportive and be dad, more than to be their coach. I just think that that's way more important. My relationship with my kids is a lot more important than their success on the wrestling mat.
That's real cool. That's actually a really cool statement, and I know it to be true. But just hearing it is really good because I think that's hard when you whether you're a great coach, you had a great career, and then your child follows in that same legacy. It's tough for some dads or moms as well because it's like you know what works, but you have to kind of cultivate it, but then take a step back. And then it's great that you have a great village around them because you talk about the training and the other guys taking them under. I think that's probably thing I've seen in my line of work as well as even with my own children is the village we have around.
Yeah.
Because I can say the same thing, but then this guy says it, and it's like, oh, I'm like, so that's really good, man. Um, Almost done, coach. This has been so much fun. I do want to ask you this, man. You talked about the upcoming matches and the vision for your program, and you talked about how much you love Blacksburg. When it comes down to it, do you have any, and this is not so much, I need you to go into depth, but do you have any regrets? Like, one thing that you talk about life lessons and things that you've learned over the years as a father and a coach and things you can't do anymore. Are there any regrets? I asked that question to a few coaches over the years, and they said, that one season, if we could have done this, or looking back, I did learn now when I do this, we should have kind of taken it lightly. Are there any not even regrets, but life lessons you've learned from, coaching over the years that you've improved upon or you understand it needs to be done this way?
Yeah, I don't want to say regrets because hindsight's always 2020, right? I mean, like
Sure.
when you have to make all these decisions, and as the head
Hmm.
coach or as a leader, you have to make a lot of decisions, and you're not always going to make the right decision. I mean, it's just the way it is, right? Um, but to me, I've learned, the one thing that I've gotten better with is constantly trying to learn and improve myself in just in an effort to help kids and help people and just get smarter about the way we do things, right? And I think we've done that. I mean, there's definitely you have to be able to work smarter, not harder. And I probably didn't always have that philosophy. It wasn't the philosophy of kind of the program where I went, or how I was wired, when I was young, I had to work real hard to be successful, to get successful, to an extreme. And that's important, but it's also important to understand that, being smart and learning from, you can learn from anybody, right? Just you never have all the answers. I'm constantly trying to get better at everything that I do. So I didn't always have that mindset. I certainly didn't have that mindset when I was young. And as I've gotten older, I feel like that's something that I've changed. It's an area I've changed in, I think, for the better, and hopefully for the better.
No doubt. No, I can agree with that. And I definitely feel what you're saying. So with that being said, coach, this is the last part of our show where I allow my guests to give some feedback or positive or whatever the closing thoughts. Um, what has the game of wrestling taught you, number one, and what advice or feedback do you want to give student athletes coming up right now? Back when you were coming up in PA, you had your life lessons, you competed, but you've now, you're a father, a husband, you're one of the best coaches in the NCAA, like you're one of the best out there. You have a phenomenal program, but you've overcome adversity and you've been through your highs and your lows. So right now, to the young men that may be coming to your program, or even young women, young athletes, what feedback do you have in regards to, becoming great, and also what is combined with that? What is the game of wrestling taught you?
Well, I guess what I would say is this: if I have any advice, is have no regrets. When it's over with, know that you put, regardless of what happened, regardless of whether you accomplished your goals or you didn't accomplish your goals, have no regrets knowing that you did everything in your power to be successful and to get to where you want to be, in every aspect, right? And that doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect all the time. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to look back on your career and in some sense in your life and be able to say, hey, I did everything in my power to try to accomplish what I want to accomplish and get where I want to get. And, whatever that is, win an NCAA title, win 4 NCAA titles, win an NCAA team championship. That's my advice to people. And I tell our guys that in our meeting every year at the beginning of the year, man. Like when you sit down, I remember for my first college meeting, when I at Edinburgh, and just having that thought, and it just distinctly stuck with me, is like I'm going to make the most of this. I don't know where I was going to go, but I'm going to make the most of this. So that's my advice. What was the other part of it?
What is wrestling taught you? Because I think, Coach, before you answer this, I think sometimes as I've become a father, I've learned, okay, I remember my losses, I remember this and the euphoria with winning and the brotherhood, but sports has taught me, as you touched on, like, appreciating the moment, living in the moment, mindfulness,
Yeah.
and just never taking a play for granted, as you just touched on. But then as I've, it taught me how to overcome adversity. So what is wrestling taught you from a player and now a coach? What has it taught you?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I mean, it's just there's so much to that. I just think that, you know, the biggest thing is you got to be grateful. Number one is be grateful for what you have and be grateful for the opportunities that you have, and take advantage of it. Right. I mean, like, everybody at some point in their life is going to get an opportunity to do something, to make something of themselves, to get to the next level. But it's your job to take advantage of that opportunity and to pour yourself into it. And wrestling has taught me how to pour myself into something, um, and really, really get committed to something, have the kind of discipline, the kind of commitment, the kind of effort. We talk about effort a lot with our team, and giving extreme effort. And I think if you give extreme effort in anything you do, you're going to have a happy life, right? And you're going to find purpose in something. And so to me, wrestling has given me a lot of purpose in my life. It's really, I think the biggest thing is it's taught me how to develop relationships and maintain relationships. And, that's the best part of this job is the relationships, just like you have with Coach Beamer, right? And with all these people that influenced you in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's the coolest part. I'm sure if you ask Coach Beamer, that's what he would probably tell you too, is you look back someday and you're like, man, this guy and this guy and this guy, and you sit and you think about him and you talk about him, and that part of it's really cool. So that's what wrestling's done for me. It's taught me a lot about everything. So it's been a great vehicle for me to build a pretty good life. So yeah, man.
No, you answered that perfectly. And it's great to hear it. It's great to see it. This has been phenomenal. It's everything I thought it would be, man. Thank you for jumping on. I can't wait to run this, man. The reality is that you are not only a great coach, but you're a champion man. And I appreciate you jumping on, man. To everybody, make sure you got those matches. Please support Hokie Nation VT Wrestling. This is a championship program, championship coach. They got some household names and some names that we're going to see coming up. Coach, shout out to your wife. I'm married. I know how it is, man. Even tonight doing this interview, man. But everybody, please go and support the wrestling team. Make sure you subscribe to the Vicktory Life channel for great interviews like this with Coach Robie and also other great interviews coming up, man. We appreciate you, Coach, for jumping on. To the wrestling program in VT, shout out to all you guys, Makai and the whole family. Keep doing your thing. Kill it this weekend. I'm going to be watching. Support it. Like I said, subscribe. Thank you, Coach, again for joining the Vicktory Life movement. And like I say every episode, please, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. On behalf of Coach Robie and his family and the rest of the Virginia Tech program, we thank you for tuning in. Everybody take care. Have a safe and blessed holiday. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Dwight. I appreciate it, man.